Good morning, everybody, and thank you for being here today. I'm really excited to share the results of the City of Wenatchee's first effectiveness study. And it's also a topic that is important to us here, mobile contractors and their potential for illicit discharges. And again, as Anya said, if you guys have questions, please feel free to put those in the chat. I'm happy to answer any questions we might have, and I'm hoping to leave enough time at the end to be able to answer those questions for you guys. So today our main focus is to talk about, I'll give you a little bit of background about how we came up with this study, but the main focus is really on what were the results, what did we learn, not only about our mobile contractors, in particular the carpet cleaning industry, but also what we're going to be doing differently to try and continue to improve our education and outreach program for these types of businesses. So again, as Anya mentioned, I'm Jessica Shaw with the City of Wenatchee, and the city was the lead agency on this project. And so the Dump Smart program, I know there's been a lot of fun jokes about the name, but it actually was a lot of effort went into developing this program. It came out of a gross grant about 11 years ago that was led by Snohomish County. And there was a lot of work put into putting focus groups together to figure out, and in general, it was mobile contractors, but we narrowed it down to really the carpet cleaners, pressure washers, painters, and hood cleaners were the main concern for pretty much everybody across the state. And really the target behavior was, do these mobile contractors know where to get rid of their wastewater? And do they have a spill kit in case they have a spill from one of their tanks or some of their chemicals? So there was outreach and information developed. There was focus groups, all kinds of things that went into developing this program. And the idea is that they sign a pledge that they're going to follow these tips that were prepared under the Dump Smart program. And then we ran an ad in the paper saying, look at these fantastic businesses and what a great job they're doing. And also gave them some information on some best management tips to better manage their wastewater spill kits. And I believe there was probably about 7 or 8 tips that were on that sheet. And the program was launched in Eastern Washington and on the west side. Here in Eastern Washington, it was in the Wenatchee Valley, Moses Lake, Spokane Valley. And if you're interested, there's actually some great information, especially from the focus groups, about people's opinions and what they know about stormwater and where they discharge their wastewater. All that information is available on the Washington Stormwater Center website. So the objectives of our study so we had this great program that had gone through all this effort to evaluate what the barriers and benefits were to all of the different kinds of mobile contractors. But our question was it effective? Did we really change anybody's behavior? Did we help them understand better how they were supposed to be managing their wastewater, or were they prepared to clean up for spills? So the whole goal of our study was, did they learn anything specifically around wastewater disposal, and were they carrying spill kits? And then was there a difference in the folks in the Wenatchee Valley who had received this education outreach program versus other parts of the state that maybe hadn't been exposed to the Dump Smart program? So we put together an experimental design, and we used the quality assurance project plan template that was developed through another ecology grant, Spokane Valley and Amy Namikas-Brash for some of the key folks that helped make that happen. Those are great templates to use, by the way. They were invaluable in helping us get through this study program. So as we were developing our detailed study design, we figured out that we needed to probably do a pilot test because we were using a survey that had not been tested before. We wanted to make sure that we were getting, the correct or the most accurate results from that survey. And that the best way was probably to reach these carpet cleaners, since they were mobile, was by phone. And we were going to use phone surveys to evaluate their knowledge and just verify some of the information that came out of the original Dump Smart program. So the data, we decided we need to be collected by a third party, and that was some of the data qualifiers that we reviewed and decided that to make sure that there was no bias, that we were not the ones collecting the data, since we were also the ones taking enforcement action on some of these mobile contractors. And then we hoped that we would probably get some help, but we were mostly going to be working together with a consultant that collected the data to do the data analysis and prepare the final report. When we first put the QAP and the detailed study design together, we had estimated that this would take 2 to 3 years to do this project, and in actuality, it took us about a month. Now, granted, there was probably about 6 to 8 months in advance of that we were spent working on the quality assurance project plan and getting it approved and getting ready to go, but the actual from beginning of hiring the consultant to go collect the data and then go through and analyze the data and prepare the final report, it was about a year. So that was good. So pilot testing, our first hang up was that many of the phone numbers, and most of the phone numbers came from either phone books or online searches, they were bad. They weren't the right number. And as you can see on the picture there, the number on the van is not the same number that you see down below under where to call. And it's probably not the same number that was in the phone book either. So what we found is a lot of folks had gone from using landlines to mobile phones, and maybe they hadn't updated their business information on their website or updated business information in phone books or even on Facebook. But actually, as it ended up, Facebook had probably the most reliable information for current phone numbers. And so we did spend some time that we didn't anticipate going back. So after the pilot test, we realized the numbers were bad. We went back, and the larger list that was for our control area and our test area, we went back and re-reviewed those numbers and made changes and used other sources such as Facebook to be able to find those additional numbers that we needed to be able to reach out to our customers. So the other issue is one of the customers said, well, how do I know this is a real survey? And I think there might have been some confusion as to why the City of Wenatchee, of course, this pilot testing was done in Pullman. And so wondering why the City of Wenatchee was calling carpet cleaning businesses in Pullman. And we also found that some of these numbers, the carpet cleaning companies just didn't answer the phone, or they didn't return the call with the message that was left to respond to the survey. So we found out the hard way that phone surveys are challenging. And my personal opinion is that it's due to the fact that we get bombarded with marketing calls and scam calls all day long. And so I think we got lumped in with that group. So from the pilot testing, we figured out that there was a few things that we needed to do differently when we went into the full test and started surveying in our test area, the Wenatchee Valley, and our control area, which was the Tri-Cities. So one of the things that we did, and this was a tough one, right, because we wanted to unbiased, and so we didn't want people to give us the right answer. Rather, we wanted them to tell us what they were actually doing with their wastewater, not just what they knew the answer to be. And so we did end up having these results be confidential. So the people that did respond to the survey, they gave their results over the phone to the consultant. The consultant blind coded all of the results so that when those results came back, which I'll share with you in a minute, we don't know who they were. We know what area they were, whether they were in the test area of the Wenatchee Valley or the control area of the Tri-Cities, but we don't have any names associated with those answers. But we did let them know more about why we were doing this. So you'll see this was our pre-notification postcard that was sent out before we had Action Research call. We thought it was important to give them some verification that this really is a legitimate survey, Action Research is a legitimate company, and these local governments are participating in this program. We did not make any changes to the survey. The survey provided the results that we had anticipated and the answers that we anticipated, even though we didn't get very many results for the pilot testing. So the consultant went ahead and did the survey, and out of 83 test and control businesses, we only had 16 completed surveys. Again, despite our efforts to try and come up with good phone numbers, we still had 20 out of that 83 that were bad or disconnected numbers. And 6 of the businesses did not clean carpets, and 2 were out of business. So sometimes advertising, even on the internet, is not very accurate with regards to what some of these businesses are doing. But the good news is that of these 16 businesses that did complete the survey on the phone, 13 of them were carrying spill kits. And they did have a more of a mixed response of answers on whether or not they were handling their wastewater correctly. But some other good pieces of information that came out of this was that we asked them, what is the best way to get information to you or reach out to you? And the mail and email were by far the preferred methods to receive information. So we thought that was good. That was different than what we had anticipated going into the study. We thought the phone, these are mobile businesses, and so the phone has to be pretty important for them to be able to communicate with customers and get business. But as it turns out, they don't always answer the phone, or we can't always find the right number to reach out to them. The other interesting part of this is only one business had heard of the Dump Smart program. So there wasn't a lot of recognition of that particular program out there. So the big question is, what are they doing with their wastewater? Well, as you can see from the first response, at least they know that those storm grates are stormwater. They also, it's clear that there's still some confusion. They're still dumping wastewater on the ground or grassy areas, especially in the test area, which is where we had done the outreach, though some have figured it out, which was encouraging, but it still seems that there's confusion over where to discharge your wastewater. The control group, their answers were, more consistent, I think, correct, which was interesting. Didn't really prove how effective the Dump Smart program was. And then for offsite locations, there was more answers. So for the control group, they were mostly discharging offsite. And again, we see kind of just a variety of answers. And this was one of those questions too that was tough to shape the question, because we didn't want to give them the answer and then have them, so like give a multiple choice question. So it was an open-ended question where they just had to provide an answer. So that also makes it challenging in the end when you're trying to analyze the data and figure out how many of these are the right answer or the wrong answer. And so that was another challenge with this type of survey. And I think this also kind of gets to this point about evaluating education outreach studies is very different than evaluating, say, a structural BMP. Those structural BMPs, if you're taking water quality samples and you're getting numbers and the quality of that because the lab provides you the maximum or the minimum reporting limit, and they provide you all the quality assurance associated with that testing, it's pretty concrete. And those results, I think, are easier to deal with sometimes than answers to an open-ended question and trying to evaluate whether or not we've accomplished what we were trying to achieve with this study. Again, I'll come back to that template. It was very helpful in what are the data qualifiers when you're talking about a survey, when you're talking about education outreach, when you're testing people, not stormwater. So it is a bit of a different ball game, and I encourage folks who are looking into evaluating the effectiveness of education outreach studies to really be familiar with that template, that quality assurance project plan template, and really understand those data qualifiers and what you're going to do to make sure that you do get good quality results. So out of the study, we made some changes to our Dump Smart program and our education outreach material. So this slide shows you on my left, but the lengthy wordy document, that was the original Dump Smart tips for carpet cleaning that was sent out to the carpet cleaners in Wenatchee Valley. And on the left, above revisions, the Dump Smart, it's not just water, that was the window cling that was also provided to them and was on the postcard and the logo that was used. So based on the study, clearly people didn't quite understand where they were supposed to discharge their wastewater yet. So we simplified things to really focus on where do you dispose of your wastewater? Because really at the heart of it, when it comes down to stormwater, that's the big thing, right? We don't want them to discharge this wastewater with, carpet cleaning wastewater has all kinds of pollutants and dirt and hair and soaps and fecal coliforms, all kinds of things that could be coming out of that carpet. And so we definitely don't want that in the stormwater system. So really, if we can change that one behavior of where they're discharging their wastewater, that's the most important one. So we really focused our education on really that one central BMP, which is properly disposing of your wastewater, and tried to make it really straightforward and clear. So on the right, you see we developed more of a postcard style. The other idea is we needed something that they could have in the van that would, or in their vehicle or near a drain, that would help remind them that this is what they were supposed to be doing with that wastewater. So the idea is that this could be turned into a sticker, it could be turned into a magnet, it could be mailed as a postcard. There's a variety of things that this particular format and language could be used for, and it's pretty quick and easy to read. And so if there was, say, a new person working for a carpet cleaning business and they needed to be reminded about how they were going to be dealing with their wastewater, this would be something that a carpet cleaning company could post inside the van and have readily available for staff to remember, and even a number to call in case they needed help. So some of the changes, as you'll see, is we added our phone number, we made it more simple, we made it more straightforward, we made it more of a usable format for a variety of media applications. We haven't yet relaunched the Dump Smart program yet. Last year, of course, with many businesses shut down, especially mobile carpet cleaners weren't able to get into folks' homes, we decided to postpone the relaunch of our education program until this year. So we are getting ready to relaunch the program, and we're excited to get this back out to our carpet cleaning businesses. So cost, I know this is always a big question of what does it cost to evaluate these programs. Also want to say a few words that, this program was developed using community-based social marketing from the very beginning. So that was why we did the focus groups, though it was challenging to follow all of the guidelines for evaluating community-based social marketing programs. It's challenging to observe what carpet cleaners are doing or find out what they're doing without actually talking to them. So that's one of the catches of how we ended up trying to evaluate the program. But it is great to evaluate because we found that it really wasn't working as well as maybe we thought it had. Despite all the effort that we put into the materials the first time around, they needed some revisions. Though a lot of that information from the initial study did carry through to our current version of the Dump Smart education and outreach program. But so costs, we underestimated what the study administration was going to be. Some of that was due to the fact we had to go back and verify phone numbers, and try and track down how we would reach some of these businesses. There was also more cost in preparing the reports than we anticipated. We also had more costs in just working with the consultant than we anticipated. But overall, the costs it was about $30,000 at the end of the day for this effectiveness study. And the data collection, that was actually less, primarily because we anticipated having more surveys to deal with, more surveys completed, and because businesses wouldn't call us back or we weren't able to reach them, the data collection actually was less expensive. So I would anticipate for other studies that hopefully if we have a better way of reaching out to those customers, then we would probably end up spending more on data collection. So those are just the costs that we saw with the program. So overall, what did we learn? That the effectiveness study template is so helpful. So I just wanted to take a moment and thank Art Jenkins and Amy Navikas-Brash and anyone else who worked on that project. I know those two were key players, not only in getting the grant and getting the project going for the templates, and Amy was an author of the templates. They're invaluable in doing these effectiveness studies. The pilot testing was worth it. We were able to head off some issues, evaluate whether or not, we were getting the right information off of the survey. So I think pilot testing is a good thing to think about. It's also, of course, part of community-based social marketing that you should pilot test some of these programs before you launch it full. Also that it's tough to communicate with customers, and especially folks that have mobile businesses where they're working out of their home and they're on the road, and they may or may not be able to talk to you on the phone when you call. Credibility was also big. We had questions about whether or not these were legitimate, and I think, unfortunately, people are bombarded with people trying to get information out of them and survey them. And so I think credibility will just continue to be an ongoing problem of, who is this people calling us and wanting to talk to us and answer these questions, and why should I take the time to answer these questions? And then changing behaviors, as we know, is not easy, but we're not giving up. We're going to keep working on it. So also thank you to our study partners. This effectiveness study, while the city was a lead agency, it was a collaborative effort of Chelan County, Douglas County, and East Wenatchee. Those are our regional stormwater partners, and this was the test area. And for our control area, where the Dump Smart program had not been implemented, we had Kennewick, West Richland, and Richland participating with us. And then Pullman was our pilot area, and City of Spokane Valley helped out with data review and review of those documents. And I just wanted to note too, it was very helpful having folks from other jurisdictions, not only to provide a control area where we could run the survey, but also to get their input and feedback on all of the documents and study design that as we were preparing those documents. It's always nice to have different perspectives on what you're putting together, and also to have other parties to be able to do some of those quality assurance reviews. Staff here at the City of Wenatchee were very involved in the study, and so it was nice to have that third-party review of what we were doing. So I'm a big fan of partnerships. And so if you'd like to see our final report and fact sheet, and we'll soon be uploading the revised education and outreach information for the Dump Smarts program, you can go to our regional stormwater website, which is wenatcheewa.gov, and then /WVSTAC, which is the Wenatchee Valley Stormwater Technical Advisory Committee. And I believe that's all I have for you guys. So I will be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Oh, thank you, Jessica. So we do have some questions.
Great.
Keep on adding them in. We got a few minutes to go. So oftentimes only individuals who are passionate about these topics will respond. Was anything done to encourage response from all types of parties? And is there anything you would do differently next time?
Great question. Thank you. Yes. And I think we saw that, right? People wouldn't call us back, and they didn't understand the importance of this. I think next time around, we're actually preparing to do another education outreach effectiveness study for a different area of our program. And we're actually going to offer an online survey. That way they don't have to talk to anybody. And we are going to put that survey out through email and mail out the link to the survey. And I'm hoping that by giving them another alternative rather than talking to someone on the phone, they may be more willing to provide answers, or if they can provide answers at their convenience. I think that was something we hadn't really thought through about carpet cleaners, is calling them during the day. They're out working and a lot of these are smaller one-person operations. And so that's definitely something that we did not consider, that now we know better. And so I think if we were to reevaluate our study, we would reach out to them using the methods that they said they preferred, which was email or mail.
So what analysis methods did you use for determining effectiveness?
So we evaluated whether or not they had a spill kit. So the other part was whether or not they'd heard of the program. So that's where it became tough, is not many of them had heard of the program, though many of them were carrying a spill kit. The other measure was looking at whether or not they knew where to discharge their wastewater, and that was, we had such a variety of answers. And the other piece was that we did not have enough data from the control and the test areas to really do a full analysis of the results. So a full usually how you'd evaluate survey data. We weren't able to do that. We weren't able to compare them because there just wasn't enough data points. So moving forward, I think it's challenging to evaluate effectiveness, especially if you have a small group of businesses and there's not as many. We thought and estimated that there was over 100 to 150 of these businesses in our test and control area. And as you saw, there was only about 83. And of that, we had very, very low participation. So the other piece of that is, what was the question, Anya? The last part of the question? Sorry, I lost track.
That's okay. It was just the analysis methods
Okay.
to determine effectiveness.
Yeah, we just didn't have quite enough, but I think our determination is that we still needed to work on that issue, that really the spill kit wasn't as much of an issue as we thought it was, or cleaning up for spills. They seemed pretty well prepared for that. Not that necessarily our program was the one that encouraged them to do that, but that we still needed to work on educating folks on how to discharge their wastewater. So the program wasn't as effective as we hoped it would be. So I think that was our conclusion at the end of the day.
How did you come up with your list of businesses to contact? Did you do business license searches, phone book reviews?
Yes, that is correct. That's a great question. Yes, we used our own databases because the city processes business licenses, and we asked that other folks help us provide if they knew of businesses. We also went through and did internet searches and phone book searches for contact information for those businesses. Initially, we mostly used the internet, but then we realized that some of the searches for like yellow pages weren't giving us accurate data. So that's why we went back and started looking in places where, Facebook is the yellow pages of the 21st century. So we went back and used Facebook for the most part to find correct phone numbers for a lot of these businesses. So that was an interesting result as well.
Was there enough data to determine a difference between the test and control groups?
There was not, unfortunately. So that was one of the downsides of the study, is we just didn't have enough data to do some of the comparisons or an evaluation or analysis that we'd hoped to do with the data.
Another question we have in the chat is, any thought of adding the website address for DumpSmart to the window clean graphic, or maybe hint at a regulation prohibiting the dumping activity like RCW 90.48?
Those are great suggestions. And thank you for adding about the website. We usually do that, but in this case hadn't. So that's like a great addition. And then the regulatory part of that, that's a great idea too. Those are all good things. And again, part of why I like working together as part of teams is you get great input, the things that you might not have thought of as you were putting this information together. So thank you for sharing that.
So we're just about out of time, but real quickly, do you have any words of wisdom about your interlocal agreement that you'd like to share, or anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up in just about a minute?
Yeah, thank you, Anya. I did want to share, so the regional stormwater group here in Wenatchee, we've been working together since 2004, and we started with a memorandum of understanding. And then as we moved into collaborating more on education and outreach and effectiveness studies and other areas of the permit, we determined that we needed to develop an interlocal agreement. And those interlocal agreements have been very valuable. In fact, it was even helpful in our current permit. It talks about if you're relying on another agency or other permittee to comply with the permit, you have to have written and it has to be signed by both parties. So that interlocal agreement satisfied that requirement of the permit. Also helped with the financial portion of getting reimbursed. So of that roughly 29,000, the city was able to get reimbursed for about 75% of that. So that made this effectiveness study even more affordable for us to get the work done. And as I mentioned before, there was huge benefits in having other people not so close to the study provide a review and provide input throughout the phases of the project, from developing the detailed study design to putting the quality assurance project plan together and evaluating the data and preparing the report in the end.
Wonderful. so we don't get cut off real quick, thank you very much, Jessica, for being with us today. And
Yeah,
thanks
thank
to
you.
everybody who attended. Further questions can be directed to Jessica, and her contact information is in your Municon program. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Have a great day.